that teams take is to prioritize those opportunities for improvement and then identify those most important to include in the recommended action plan. Now, we've discussed the action plan, and what I'd like to do is introduce you to step number 9 that specifically talks about how to develop and implement an action plan for improvement. You see, the outcome of your self-assessment is a roadmap for improving the organization. And so, by developing an improvement action plan, you move closer to achieving results and making improvements. Here's how to do it. The champions develop an action plan for improvement that addresses top priorities and includes some short-term actions to maintain the momentum for improvement. Now, this is an important part because you need to allow your team to reach the low-hanging fruit so that they can enjoy the fruits of their labor and be recognized for their efforts. Also, your action plan should indicate who is responsible for each action item, who is accountable for each step, what is to be accomplished, and how. It should also include a list of your key progress dates and how progress will be measured. Now, of course, it's the responsibility of senior leadership to communicate the action plan to the rest of the organization. Champions should obtain feedback on the plan and, of course, revise the plan based on this feedback. And then, senior leaders should deploy the plan throughout the organization and, of course, track or measure results. And finally, senior leaders should communicate the progress of your action plan frequently and lead the celebration when results are achieved. Well, that brings us to the very last step, step number 10. And in step number 10, you evaluate and improve your self-assessment and action process. The final step is all about improvement. After all, the purpose of this step is to ensure that your processes stay fresh. You don't want your self-assessment program to become stale or outdated. Also, be open to the critics and naysayers who dislike the process altogether, because even their voices should be heard. And of course, since nothing is perfect, you need to regularly schedule meetings to refine and improve both your self-assessment process and your action plan process. In closing, let me acknowledge this. It's a very thorough and detailed process. But I think it's vital to every organization that seeks long-term growth and success. In the words of Clark American Check's President and CEO Charles Corbell Jr., and I'll quote him, "The results of your business performance can be summed up in 3 words: sustained, profitable growth," unquote. And so I challenge all of you to become performance-based leaders and to begin to use this widely accepted Baldrige criteria and self-assessment strategy to achieve sustained, profitable growth. Thank you very much, and good luck to you.
We will now continue with the second question and answer session. Our first question, actually, I'm going to ask, and that is, if you've just begun your first self-assessment, can you suggest a few ways that a company or the people doing the assessment can prioritize their findings and include them in an action plan, say, for the next 6 or 12 months?
Sure. I think you want to look at where your organization is in terms of its customer satisfaction, because ultimately what will drive your long-term growth and success is your ability to acquire and maintain your customers. So the step that I would recommend after you complete your self-assessment and you want to prioritize doable action steps for your action plan would be, number one, focus on what the customer wants. Where will you have the greatest impact in terms of maintaining your customers? Secondly, I think it's important to look at what I like to refer to as the low-hanging fruit. You want to give your employees a chance to succeed. So where are some of the low-hanging fruit that your employees can grab and achieve some immediate success? And then the last point in terms of prioritizing your action plan is you want to look also at the return on investment, that if you do A, what will be the return on investment to your organization for taking on action item A, for example. If the return is high, go for it. If the return is low, you might want to move on to B or C in terms of your priorities.
Thanks. Our next question is from Ecuador. It's the one we tried to get before. It's from MR y Compañía Consultores in the city of Manta in Ecuador.
Greetings from MR and Company from Ecuador. Without the classic structures, if those are outdated, could we think that we could now have some kind of combination of a structure, a functional one and one-oriented and based on client-oriented one? So how can we combine both structures? Wouldn't that be a good idea?
Well, you're always going to go through a transformation from who you are to what you want to become organizationally. And in the context of transitioning from that functional structure to more of a customer-focused structure, you're not going to discard everything that you're doing and just change overnight. I don't think that's physically possible in an organization. So, yes, you're right. You're going to keep some of the functional components and over a period of time change those over to more customer-focused approaches. It's similar to your technology. If you're going to go in and change your telephone system, for example, typically you don't just throw everything out one day and put in a new system. You gradually integrate new pieces and parts of that information technology. And the same is true when you're changing the culture and how you do business from a functional standpoint to a customer-focused standpoint. So I hope that helps you.
Our next question is from Mexico. It is from La Universidad Autónoma de Baja California Sur. It's from the capital city of La Paz in the state of Baja California Sur in Mexico.
Muchas gracias, muy buenos días.
Hay mucha interferencia.
We're having a lot of interference on this call.
Buenos días, muchas gracias.
Okay. I would like to ask the following question as far as the model that you have explained here. Our question has to do with the focus on the client. If one organization has to satisfy both clients, external clients as internal clients, this model could be implemented in parallel both for employees and staff, or if we are talking about a school or university like ours, when we're talking about clients that are the employees and staff personnel, administrative personnel, they are unionized, which could also be in the academic area, and of course our internal clients, which are the most important ones, which are our students. Could we apply this model in order to get the performance, successful performance in parallel, in tandem, both for internal and external clients, because the external client is going to be the society at large, which are our graduates who are going in to insert themselves in society. So what do you think about implementing this in parallel, in tandem? What do you think?
Well, this is an excellent question because it really deals with the struggle that I think all of education faces, especially higher education. Because as you know, and as I said earlier, facts are friendly, higher education has two very diametrically opposed customer bases. On one hand, you have the students, and on the other hand, you have the faculty. And oftentimes, they clash. They don't see eye to eye. So, first of all, let me recommend that this year in the United States, one of the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award winners was the University of Wisconsin Stout, S-T-O-U-T campus in Wisconsin. And I have here in my hand a copy of their application summary, and this is available online. So if you want to go to, I'll give you this website. It's www.quality.nist, that's NIST.gov, G-O-V. So www.quality.nist.gov. You can download the highlights of their application. I mentioned the University of Wisconsin because they have addressed exactly the problem or challenge that you've asked in your question, and that is, how do you bring together different customer bases in order to improve the process? And I think, without belaboring the question, if you read this application, or perhaps some from your own country that have applied, I think you're going to find that there is a very effective way to merge both client bases, that is the faculty, the students, and of course you mentioned a very good third one, and that is your graduates and the community at large. So they do address that, and I would refer you to the University of Wisconsin application.
Our next question is from Mexico. It is from Conalep, which is in the city of Veracruz, in the state of Veracruz, in Mexico.
Buenos días. Good morning. I'm calling from Conalep, from Veracruz. A greeting to all my fellow coordinators and the people here at the program. Excellent presentation. Here we are from the educational sector. In what way could we apply this model based on performance with our teachers and our students, which our students are the soul of our organization? How can we really apply this model without so much bureaucracy? How could we do away with some of the bureaucracy to make this more agile, more efficient, and expedite the process?
Well, I wish I could give you a magic wand that you could wave to make bureaucracy go away. Unfortunately, I think bureaucracy, whether it's in education, government, or even in private business, will always be more than we want. So that's just a harsh fact of life. However, I think to the heart of your question, the performance-based leadership model works in education as well as in the private sector and government for that matter, because it's based on two very important principles. Number one, that leadership wants to improve its performance, and secondly, that if you give employees the opportunity and the resources they need to improve, they will seize that opportunity and improve. Now, the challenge that you have in education is you have to create harmony. And the way you get harmony in terms of your strategic direction is you have to bring together the administration and the faculty so that the students' interest, they're your customers, your primary customers, so that the students' interests are advanced. In other words, they are addressed. But that won't happen if the administration is going in one direction and the faculty is going in a different direction. So those two key internal customer groups have to come together in harmony in order to make it work for your student population. The second thing that I will say is that if you follow the self-assessment process, I think you'll be amazed at how quickly you can reduce the level of bureaucracy, because you find that many things that you're doing you don't need to do. They'll just take care of themselves as a result of empowering the employees to get the job done. So I would encourage you to try the self-assessment process as one step to improve your performance and reduce bureaucracy.
Our next question is from our neighbors in Tijuana to the south in Baja California. It's from the Centro Universitario de Tijuana in the city of Tijuana in the state of Baja California in Mexico.
In our country, Mexico, we have the National Award, Quality Award, which talks about environment, social, and ecological impact. Do you think this is important for the objectives of a business? Your model includes something in this regard, because the Mexican award contemplates all these aspects.
Well, first of all, I'm very familiar with the Mexican award, and it's an outstanding national quality award, so I compliment you for mentioning it. I think the unique thing about your award, when you talk about the environmental and social impact that a business or any organization has on society, is extremely important. In today's society, there's a higher level of consciousness in the responsibilities that a business has to protect the environment and to improve the population's ability to have a better lifestyle, to have a better quality of life. And so I think that is a given. When a business has to manufacture a product, they must consider the impact of that production or that manufacturing on water and air and what they take out of the earth and what they put back into the earth, and how they do that in a socially responsible way. Unfortunately, we have too many examples of companies that have polluted the environment or abdicated their responsibility to society. And unfortunately, once you betray your society, and by the way, those are your customers, they will abandon you. I'll give you one very quick example of where this is now developing into a major industry issue, and that is cruise ships. And in your beautiful country, of course, and I've cruised to different ports in your country, the cruise line industries are being challenged for discharging waste from their ships in harbors or in the open waters just outside the 3-mile territorial limits, the international waters. But those pollutions come back and pollute your beaches. That's grossly unfair to the population, and I think the cruise line industry in this example is going to have to figure out how to keep waste on board until it gets to its home port and then safely just discharges that. Otherwise, people are going to be alienated and they are not going to support that industry. So absolutely, to answer your question, yes, they're important, and they have more of an impact today than they've ever had.
Let me ask you this question about ethics. Yeah, you talked about ethics earlier. Let's say that we're doing a self-assessment, and we're in a situation where a manager is concerned about the score and wants to fudge the score, wants to change the score to make it a little bit higher.
Embellish the results.
To embellish the results so that the department or he will look good. What advice would you give to one of the participants, one of the team members, in how to deal with that? Is it ethical, and how should you deal with it?
Well, this is a really difficult question, because on one hand, if you work for an individual who wants to misrepresent the facts, that is an ethical violation. And I think what you have to understand about a self-assessment, the entire purpose of a self-assessment is not to punish you for your shortcomings. It's to remind you of what your strengths are, as well as those opportunities for improvement. And so I would encourage all of you who are managers, who are involved in a self-assessment process. Sure, you want to put your best foot forward, and that's human nature. But I would caution you from taking the actual results and misrepresenting them, or, as Richard suggests, embellishing them, because that betrays the entire purpose of the self-assessment. And I think it's very important for the employees in that business unit or that department to stand up to a manager as a group and say, we're not going to tolerate misrepresenting the facts here. We're not going to be part of that. I used the example earlier of Enron. Had more employees in that company had the courage and the ethics and stood up for what they believe, their core values, perhaps Enron and even Arthur Andersen would be a more viable company today.
Our next question, I believe, is from Mexico. It is from the Universidad Autónoma de Chihuahua in the state of Chihuahua, in the city of Chihuahua, and the state of Chihuahua in Mexico.
Buenos días. My question, good morning from Chihuahua, Mexico. My question is for the speaker. Have you worked with Latin American companies in implementing processes based on productive leadership? And what can you recommend in that regard, taking into account the differences and mentalities, idiosyncrasies, cultural differences as vis-a-vis the United States? So we're just different from the U.S. So what experience could you cite?
Well, first of all, let me acknowledge that Latin America is definitely different from the United States. And I think it's different and it's better in many ways. I think your cultural differences give you certain advantages that we do not enjoy in the United States. So I just want to say, first of all, that I think that there are both positive aspects of implementing this particular performance-based leadership model in Latin America that we might not enjoy here in the United States. So culture can definitely be an asset for you. In terms of my experience in working with Latin American companies and organizations, I find that there are two major differences, and very briefly, here's what they are. Number one, I think you have to implement this model in the context of the existing culture, both social culture and the corporate culture. And I think you understand what I'm talking about there. I think, secondly, you have a different emphasis on business results or financial results in Latin America than you do in the United States. And I think that's to your advantage. Financial results are important to you, but I don't think that they're the be-all and end-all that they are here in the United States. So that's to your advantage.
Our next question is from Mexico. It is from the Universidad Liceo Cervantino. It is in the city of Irapuato. It is in the state of Guanajuato in Mexico.
What are the strategies to implement a leadership looked at it from the human side and not so much as an organizational thing, not from the productive point of view? Let's look at it more from the human point of view. What can you say about that?
Well, from a human standpoint, I think the more in touch a leader is with his or her people, I think the more quickly they can implement any kind of leadership or performance-driven model, whether it's mine or someone else's. So I do think that the human side of leadership is an invaluable tool that senior executives can use to their advantage. Let me give you one example. Jack Welch, who recently retired as the CEO of General Electric, one of the most admired companies in the world. And by the way, far from perfect, but a very successful company. Jack Welch emphasized two important factors to help him lead General Electric to a best-in-class company. And here's what those two factors were. Number one, he emphasized teams. He was a great believer in teamwork, and that it isn't just about one individual, but it's about the collective group that really makes an organization succeed. So teamwork is number one. The second thing is Jack Welch emphasized not necessarily breakthrough results, 20, 30% dramatic gains in a quarter or over a year, but gradual, systematic, continuous improvement results that incremental results is the best word, that gradually improve performance. And I'll give you one other thing that he did just that comes to mind. He was a great believer in investing in his people, train them so that they have the mental resources and the physical resources to achieve better results.
Okay, I'm going to give you a challenge. This is our last question. We've only got about 15 seconds for your answer.
Okay.
The 7 categories in the Malcolm Baldrige Award that are linked to it, how can they be linked to achieving long-term business results?
Well, the great thing about the 7 categories of the Baldrige Award is, first of all, you have to start with leadership because leadership drives the process. And you can see that in order to achieve long-term results, it is a holistic, systematic approach, Richard, to linking those together, because you're not going to have long-term success if you don't plan strategically, if you don't improve your processes, or you don't focus on your customer and your markets, etc.
Thank you for your excellent questions, but unfortunately we have run out of time. We hope that you have enjoyed participating once again in this exciting multilingual and multinational program. We invite you to participate in the 5th video conference of this year's Excellence with a Global Flair series, entitled Health and Productivity, a Balanced Approach Towards Our Well-Being and Organizational Success, which will air on May 23rd, 2002. For additional information on this video conference series, please consult your participants' manual, where you will find the dates and specific topics for each program. You may also visit our website at itc-group.org. On behalf of all of us at the International Training Center, I thank you for your enthusiastic participation and interest in today's program. Thanks, and see you again soon.